Assalamu alaikum grade 6 and welcome to week 2 of your English lessons. We're looking at unit 1 again, where we live now. Page 10, we're looking at a poem, Across the Indus by Shahid Hussain. Now, a poem is a piece of writing that expresses feelings, ideas, using imaginative language. Now, poems or poetry needs a deeper understanding of the language. You can't just read a poem unless you are very familiar with the text and the language used. You need to actually delve into it and understand every word, and it's a really excellent way of expressing yourself better, because some words have a deeper meaning, and this only suits poems. Poetry is a unique language. Okay, it's a very unique language, and it helps you express your feelings, convey your message a lot more vividly. And this is what Shahid Hussain has done in this poem, about how he views the city while he's there, and then how he views the city when he's on the other side. Right, just like in the last week's lesson, I have made a little timetable for you. And to be very honest, if you do stick to this timetable, all your work will be done. So Monday, the video is uploaded on the Friday or over the weekend. So Monday it's there for you. Go through the slides, okay? Note down any work that needs to be submitted, anything that you want to discuss in your Zoom class. Go through exercise 1, that's your words and meanings, and your exercise 2 will be the words and their sentences. Tuesday, I'd like you to do exercise 3, which is attempt the comprehension questions. The words that we are looking at will only be in red, because the poem has a few words that you might not be familiar with. So I have looked through all those words, but the ones that we're actually using for their meanings and their sentences, those words will only be in red. On Wednesday, I'd like you to read a book of your choice for at least 40 minutes and then write a summary of what you have read. Fiction reading should be done every day anyway. If you are unsure and confused, please mail me in Google Classroom or ask when you join the Zoom English class. Right, so in the text in front of you, if you have the book, fine. If not, I have the page here on the slide. I've highlighted some words that I think we need to really look at the meaning. Now, in the dictionary, there's a lot of meanings for a certain word, but when we read a text, we actually look at the word and how it's used in that sense. Okay, so what the word means in the text that we are reading. What does the writer want us to understand? How does that word fit in to the text that's in front of us? So the first word that we have is festering. Okay, festering. This word's in red, so obviously we will need to be writing these words down. Becoming worse or more intense. So something that just doesn't stay normal or average, it becomes worse and worse. It doesn't just stop. Okay, so if it's a problem, it's not going to get solved, it's not going to stay there. As time goes on, it becomes a lot worse. It grows, in other words. Insistent. Continuing something in a demanding way. When you insist on something, you're a very demanding person, you insist that something should be done in a certain way, or what you want it should be done. Drone. Now, drone in the dictionary, there's a couple of other meanings as well, but for this text, for this poem, we're looking at as a continuous low humming sound, like and it continues, doesn't stop, and it gets quite annoying as well. Indifferent, having no particular interest, neither good nor bad. It's how you view certain things. You're indifferent to it. Okay, you don't have a particular view, you don't particularly like it, but you don't particularly dislike it. So you have no interest. You're neutral, could be neutral. Disgorging, pour, spill out, literally being thrown out. And that's the word that we'll be looking in the text as well. Mantle, even though this word is not in red, we're still going to look at the meaning. It's a covering. Now, mantle has a couple of other meanings as well, but in this poem, it means a covering. Enveloped, cover. Obliterating, literally destroy, wipe out, finish. Captivating, to attract, charming. Jostle, push, bump against. When you nudge, maybe. It's a little bit harsher and a bit more harder than nudge. Brink, edge of something. So I was at the brink, or I placed something at the brink of the table. Okay, so the brink edge of the table. Placid, very calm, very peaceful. Okay, these words that are in red, we'll be looking at their meanings as we have done, and you'll be writing them down in your notebook. Now, what other meanings can you find in the dictionary? Write them down as well for Zoom class. For example, I said drone has another meaning too. So for all these words, I'd like you to look at the other meanings given in the dictionary. But the words in red, we need to definitely write the meanings down that are given in front of you right now on this slide, and then we'll be using these words for our sentences later on.
Across the Indus, how beautiful it seems, that crowded, festering, insistent city. Dirt, barren heat, the cruel drone of the flies, the sores paraded to indifferent eyes, the ruined houses leaning to each other, disgorging naked, unappealing children, playing their games in self-created filth, and rising, waiting, casting its heavy mantle, the suffocating, obliterating dust, swirling forever in the noisy lanes. But I have crossed the river, placing the deep and easy flow of green between that life and this, clear and toy-like in the distance, quiet, pure and captivating, lies the city. Gracefully the houses jostle each other to the river's brink. So the Indus mirrors those dirty shadows like a dream in crystal, and the ugliness I saw and came away from along the placid water flows away.
Right, so what did we just read? We read a free verse poem, a poem that doesn't really have many rules, no rhyme, no rhythm, but there's still an artistic expression. Okay, we did see as we were reading through the poem, there was no rhythm, there was no rhyming words, but it is still an expression on the side of the poem. Okay, the poet was trying to convey his feelings, trying to convey what he could see through his words. What did we actually understand? We have read the poem, but have we understood what it's all about? Let's have a look at the first verse. Now, I'm not going to read through this, but we'll quickly go through it. Please focus on the words in red. These words are quite significant to the meanings from the rest of the words. So the sentence that has this word in it, festering, drone, indifferent, they actually play a big part in how we understand what the poet was trying to say. So how beautiful it seems, not how it is, seems. Crowded, festering. What did festering mean? Basically something that's growing and growing. So this crowd and this insistent city that's demanding city is just not stable, it's not still, it's not stopping, it's growing. Dirt, barren heat, cruel drone of flies. Drone, if you recall, that continuous sound. So these flies are all around the dirt and the heat, and they're just listlessly maybe just there humming away. The indifferent eyes. So the source paraded, the view in front of us or in front of him is not really worth it. It's not good and it's not bad. It's not really bothered. Okay, the view in front of anyone he could think does not really matter, does not really make a difference. Ruined houses leaning to each other, so he's viewing the houses as being ruined, maybe they're damaged, they're falling apart, and they're just literally, there's so many houses in the city, overcrowding, that to him, it seems like they're leaning against each other. Disgorging naked, unappealing children. So these naked, unappealing, not very attractive children are spilling out on the streets, okay, making a mess and then just playing in it. Then he talks about the suffocating, obliterating dust. This obliterating dust that is destroying everything in its path is basically creating a shadow. It's enveloping the city and just going round and round in the lanes. Now, to make this a little easier for you, I've written this. Just a quick overview of what this verse was about. So the first verse speaks of the author viewing the city in front of him. There is no positivity, just sheer skepticism while gazing towards the city. He just sees what is physically in front of him, and the view is of no real interest to him. The busy, crowded, hot city that to him is literally covered in dust. And the children he sees are just so many, just rushing out with minimum clothing, creating a mess, and then playing in it. The second verse. Now he's crossed the river. Suddenly the city is not as bad as it's seen before. Now it's at a distance. He's viewing it from a distance. It seems a lot better now, seems quiet, seems a lot more attractive. Now the houses don't seem ruined. They're standing gracefully. And the river actually mirrors the water in its crystal form, portrays that in a much better, much positive form. The ugliness of the city that he first was talking about has gone. Just like how the water flows away, this is how those thoughts and those perceptions are now going away. And again, a quick summary. Once he's on the other side, the water mirrors the view before in a different light. So before him, it's in a different light now. The houses he saw as ruins now stand gracefully. Ugliness of the city swept away by the magic of the river. And the city is almost like a toy building. Seems a lot more attractive. Now I know this part of the slide was a little longer than I intended, but it's very important for you to understand what these verses mean. This will help you with the comprehension questions later. Feel free to pause here, listen again, or just read the poem to yourself. Again here I've just put the words in red, and I just want you to think about how these words add depth to the sentence and what emotions the writer wants us to feel. So with the word festering, drone, indifferent, disgorging, obliterating and placid, what does he want us to feel? He obviously wants us to have this image that the city is getting out of control, nobody's really interested, they're not bothered. The naked, unappealing children are literally spilling out. They aren't just coming out of their houses, there's so many they're spilling out. And the dust is not just a little bit of dust, it's what? It's actually destroying everything in its path, swirling round and round. So read through these and then have a little think, and especially with the red words, read them out aloud. Festering, drone, indifferent, disgorging, obliterating and placid. Right, these slides were given to you last time as well, and I've added it in again just so that you can use this part to make your sentences a lot more interesting. So I don't want a simple sentence, I want you to try and use your conjunctions, try to make compound and complex sentences. I've given you examples, sentence samples to use. I've given you a full sentence in the beginning, so these are my sentences. You are not allowed to use these. But then I've given you half a sentence for you to complete if you're finding it difficult to construct your own sentences. Again, the same words are being used: festering, drone, indifferent, disgorging, obliterating and placid. This is your exercise 2 to write in your notebooks, take a picture and attach it into the Google Classroom. Right, I have a few comprehension questions for you. Why does the poet find the children unappealing? How does the atmosphere of the river compare with that of the city? And why is it appropriate to call a dirty city festering? Now, the first question, I'd like you to look at this part in the poem. Think about what they look like in his eyes, especially when he used the word disgorging, the word naked, self-created filth. This is what's going to give you a clue, but why does he find them so unattractive? Think of the word unappealing as well. When you look at the question, think about what is asking. So why? So it does need an explanation, not a one-worded answer. You need to write in detail. Why does the poet find the children unattractive, in other words? So you need to think about what they look like in his eyes. Question 2, how does the atmosphere of the river compare with that of the city? So you're comparing the two things. I'd like you to look at this part of the poem where he talks about the greenery, the clear toy-like in the distance of the buildings, how here he's finding it quiet, pure, the river, brink, the water. Think about how he described the city and now how he feels looking across the river. Third question, why is it appropriate to call a dirty city festering? So that crowded, festering, insistent city, think about what the word festering meant and how it's relevant to the city and its problems. Please write these questions out in your notebook and the answers and attach it in the Google Classroom. This is your exercise 3.